Hello and welcome back to another knitting pod. I am Lena and I am coming to you from Boulder, Colorado. And this is a channel where we talk about knitting and life and anything else that floats our boat. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for spending an hour more or less with me. I have a lot to show you today. I don't know how, but I feel like I got a lot of knitting done this week. And it was a really hectic week. As the school year comes to an end, I feel like the kids' schedules get crazier, and all I can say is I am so grateful for the longer days of sunshine right now, because the minute it gets dark, I'm like a baby. I get very sleepy. So extra sunlight just allows me to get through the day. I don't know if you feel like that, but anyway. Let's talk about knitting. We talk about life stuff at the end. So if you're here for just knitting, you're in luck, because that is where we shall begin. I finished my very V-neck raglan by Jessie May of Jessie May Designs. I did not know if it would be done in time to show you today, but somehow I made it through. You know, I don't know if y'all feel like this, but the first sleeve is the slowest, and you get to like around here and you're just like, oh, this is gonna take forever. And if you resist the temptation to cast something new on and push through the half of the first sleeve, I feel like the second sleeve just flies by. I don't know if you feel that way, but that is definitely how I felt about this. I remember feeling that in the ranunculus. You know, when you get to just a stockinette round and round, sometimes it can get a little monotonous, but if you push through, the second sleeve does fly. So I do feel that way. I made my very V-neck raglan in the size small in Noro Kakigori yarn, which is a DK weight cotton silk viscose blend, I believe. I chatted a lot more about the yarn last week. If you are interested in more, you can check that episode out. What do I think? All in all, I really, really love it. I do think I could have knit the extra small instead of the small. There is a lot of ease. How can I show you how much ease? Like, this is my body and this is how much ease there is. I also think more than even the ease, the yoke depth, it has a lot of yoke depth. So like, look where the underarm starts, my underarm is here. So I am not a designer and I'm very new, relatively new to sweater knitting. I wasn't a sewer before, anything like that. So I don't know if it is the depth of the V that necessarily creates that like deeper underarm, or if it was just the size not being exactly right for my body, but it definitely is a very oversized garment. And the sleeves are also just, there's no decreases, so there's no sleeve shaping. And I really struggled with if I wanted to insert some of my own sleeve shaping, but I did not. I think I might have decreased 1 or 2 stitches, but I was scared to get like a very, like if I had tapered it a lot, I think it would have looked weird with a wide sleeve hole and then tapering down. Do you know what I mean? So I just chose not to do that. And I really love Jessie May and her aesthetic, so I just chose to trust and pretty much knit it just as the pattern said. And I really do like it. One thing I will say is the V is really, it is aptly named the very V-neck raglan because it is a deep V. I liked that look. I wanted it to have a dramatic neckline. So you could knit more of this ribbing along the neck. You pick up stitches after you've knit the body, and that way you can, you can knit more ribbing to make it smaller. I thought I had hit a good depth for my V-neck. But then I think once I did the sleeves, it started to pull it a little bit open. So just be mindful of that if you are going to knit this or if you are knitting it now. Just that the weight of the sleeves will pull it down more. So you might err on the side of a couple of extra rows of ribbing on the V. So this morning when it literally came off the drying mat this morning, I blocked it yesterday and I had like the highest setting on the fan going because I really wanted to be able to show it to you guys today. But so when I put it on, the shoulders were slipping, and I have really broad shoulders that are very angular. I don't have like slopey shoulders. If you have slopey shoulders, this would be a problem for you, I think. But I do have a little hack for you. Where did I put it? Here. Okay. One of my dear friends owns a bridal salon in Dallas, and she has been working in that industry for decades, and they sell obviously extremely expensive designer garments. And she said their trick for taping down dresses or weird spots on dresses for brides is to use toupee tape. And this, you can get it just off of Amazon for really inexpensive. It's called Top Stick. So they use this exact tape and remarket it to women in like cute pink packaging as, I don't really know what it's called, but it's so much more expensive repackaged for women, because I told you they're just trying to sell you stuff. If you have any issues, buy this. I taped this right here. I feel nothing. It's completely comfortable and it just sits perfectly and no one knows. And then you're not having to rip out or, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to rip the neckline out. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to manage with this. So if you have any garments that you've got things that you want to just make sure they're secure so that you can go about your business without always like tugging and yanking at your clothes, Top Stick. By a professional recommendation, not just me. I've used it for years. So I had it in my drawer and it is very handy for lots of things. And if it can keep a man's hair down, then it can keep our sweaters up. So yeah, what else do I have to say about this? I told you is the Noro yarn. I'm really, really thrilled with the feel of this yarn. I love the color. I think it's so funky and earthy and organic and cool looking. It's very, uneven in terms of the way the color played out, and I really like that. It is not itchy or scratchy at all, and I know that tends to be a wool issue, and there is no wool in this, but it's just such a lovely fabric. I think the single ply combined with the silk content, it just feels so smooth and breathable and lovely. I highly recommend this yarn. I also just loved that it comes in these giant balls of yarn. So there was no like weaving in ends. I mean, there was at the, underarm and wherever you bound off, but it was so quick and easy. So I love it. I have a ton left. I might make like a little Jessie made tank top or something with my leftovers because I think that'd be cute for the summer. And it's such a summery colorway too. It's like light, and I'm not usually drawn to orange, but I feel like the orange in this is really unique and pretty. So yeah, that is my finished object. I'm so excited. There's nothing more exciting than getting to wear the garment you've been working on. And this thing I finished really quick. I think it was 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks and a few days. But of course, if you watched my last pod, I had a lot of knitting time for this. So it's one of those fun projects that goes really fast and I think is super versatile. Like you could wear this with jeans, you could wear it tucked into high-waisted jeans. I think it'd be really cute in the summer with a denim skirt. Right now I'm wearing it with leggings because let's get real, I wear denim like never because why wear a button and a zipper when you could have a stretchy waistband? Like that makes no sense to me. So anyway, versatile, fun. You could make it in wool. You can make it in a fingering weight. You know, I love Jessie Made because she does give you so many options for her garments. So yes, that is that. And it inspired me. Finishing this and pushing through that middle part inspired me to do the same on my other current Jessie Made sweater, which is the big rib sweater. Y'all have heard me talk about this a lot. I'm not going to rant and rave about, I would say there's no raving. I will not rant about how much I dislike ribbing in a large gauge. If you would like that installment of this, you may go back to the previous 2 or 3 episodes where I did talk about that. But progress on this was I finished the sleeve. I decided to make the sleeve 3/4 length because I felt like I would find it more wearable where it stops right here, because like this, the sleeves are long, but I don't know. They aren't irritating me. So I think this would have been fine if I had gone the full length, but I just felt like 3/4 was calling to me. And so that is what I did. It is 3/4 length. I did, you know, it switches from 4x4 ribbing to 1x1 ribbing. And this morning I picked up the stitches for sleeve 2, and I'm very proud of myself because, you know, if you've watched me before, I do not like picking up stitches. It's really boring and it takes forever. And especially in an armhole, you really need to hit the right stitch count so you don't have weird stuff happening on the sleeve. And so, you know, I like to do what I learned from Andrea Mowry, which is to split the sleeve into 4 quarters. So I think there were 48 stitches you needed to pick up. So instead of trying to make that even across the whole circle of the sleeve hole, I put a stitch marker so that I'm gonna like pick up 12 here, 12 here, 12 here, and that makes it a lot easier to manage and quicker. That is not a me tip. That is like, I think that is a fairly well-known tip, but maybe it's helpful to you. Andrea Mowry, I learned that from her little Friday chit chats. Those are so helpful if you ever, you know, she's so delightful, and those little 30-minute chats, you just learn so much from them. It's called I'll Knit If I Want To. Even if the specific problem that she's addressing or the question she's answering is not something you're particularly struggling with, then I have found it sticks in my head. And then someday when I do encounter that problem, I have an idea of how to solve it. And I think that's really helpful. So I'm working on this. My goal is to finish this weekend because ironically, I have not loved knitting this, and that is because the yarn and the gauge and the ribbing issue, which again, I'm not going to rehash, but that has nothing to do with the designer. I love the designer. But I think I'm going to love wearing this because this Melted Baby Suri by Ching Fibers is the softest thing ever. And I love when I've tried this on, it feels so incredibly comfortable and buttery and just like being swaddled by a kitten. And I know once it's washed and blocked, it's gonna be even more so. So I'm dying to wear this. And I know I can just power through this sleeve. And I think there's this easy collar. I can power through that. And then I will have freedom to cast on what I want to cast on without the guilt of having something that I know I can get through easily. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? I think we all struggle with this sometimes, where we are just ready to be done, and there's nothing wrong with that. Oops, I think one of my little alpaca guys just fell off, but I don't want to drop any stitches. So anyway, that is where we are. I feel motivated to continue on because it is so lovely to have our completed objects, right? The hopes and dreams of the beginning are usually matched by the excitement of getting to wear our beloved knits. we're just powering through, y'all. 15 minutes. I told my husband it would be a short episode, and he said, sure. We all know I could go on and on. So what else? See, I really have been extraordinarily productive. I have one more thing that's on my needles and that I got done. I got a lot done on. I'm not finished. And that is the MCAL from last year by my beloved Stephen West. If you know, you know. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but I finished this wingtip this week. I think it was last Sunday that I finished this. When oh God, the weeks are just blending. I don't remember how many weeks it's been since I got back from Dallas, but I think I was just really tired of working on this garment. I was really tired of just plain stockinette. I really wanted to work on something more challenging and colorful and, you know, something more involved. And so I decided to pick this up. I was about here probably. And on this section, I'll show you on this side, you are picking up stitches along this strip and connecting it, which is very fun. And once you get the hang of it, very easy. It's not difficult. It's just, you need to pay attention. And I can tell you where you need to pay attention is on these lavender stripes. So each of these stripes is 4 rows, and 2 of those rows are picking up these stitches. Well, on all of them except 1, you have to pick up, one of them is just knit 1 last stitch with a stitch from this lime green, and the others are 2 and 1. So I don't know if this is making any sense. I'm sorry. My point, I'll just stop trying to explain, but my point is it's easy to get those mixed up. It's easy to always do 3, but sometimes you have to do 2. So by the end, I was off. And so instead of this tapering down to no stitches, I had some stitches left over. So that is why mine looks like a little, this part, I think it should have been just like tapered to nothing. And I had these stitches. I just bounded off. There was no way in any universe I was going to go back and try to figure it out. Y'all, if an MCAL is a marathon, this has been like a double marathon for me, like a triathlon. It's just taken a lot of stamina to keep on going. And I fear that, okay, I am not a tall person. I was recently informed that I am 5'3.5". I used to think I was 5'4". So either I was always under, the wrong impression, or I have shrunk. These are delightful options. As you get older, maybe I'm shrinking. That's fabulous. But, my husband says I have plenty of personality for like an 8-foot person. So we're all good. I'm short. It's fine. My point is, this baby is long. Like, I can't even fit. Look at this. This entire thing is going to get filled in. It's very long and it doesn't have a lot of depth. I fear as a short person that it's going to be a very awkward shawl because it's going to be like, I'm going to be dripping in this shawl, and I do not wear shawls like zhuzhed around my neck because it makes me feel short and stumpy. Okay? There, I said it. I do not like cutting off this part of me with a bunch of fabric because I just feel like a short, stocky blob of fabric. And so I do like a deep V-neck. It makes me feel like I have more grace and neck, and I do not. It's all an illusion. So I just don't know what this is going to pan out like. Compared to the MCAL from the year before, which was his traditional kind of, circular, semicircular shawl, number one, I think I was able to finish that faster because there were several sections that I didn't want to do, so I didn't do them. Like that crisscross section, if you did that, there was like a crisscrossed stitches thing that I was just like, I have zero desire to do that. So I just skipped it and did some like stockinette or something until I got to the next section. I didn't love the border, so I replaced the border with something else. This bad boy, not so easily modified. Like, once you're committed, you're kind of committed. I did see some people doing different things with the end part of this section, but I think I'm just going to stick. I really like it. I think it's beautiful. I just don't know how much wear I'll get out of it, but we are too far down this road now. And also that's kind of part of the fun of the MCAL is releasing the control and trusting our beloved that he knows what he's doing, and that even though it might not be something you chose, it's an adventure. And I will take any adventure Stephen West invites me on. And I really do love, I love what it's turning out to be. And I am excited to see if I have enough yarn to do, there's like an optional endpoint to add a little more depth, because I think I'm probably not, he probably realized it was very long and that some people might want a little more depth. I don't know if I'll have enough yarn left to do that. We shall see. Anyway, I'm not going to ramble on and on about this. I know most of you, if you undertook it, have finished it, because now we are closer to the next MCAL than we are to last year's MCAL. But I have no shame. It is not a race. It is not a competition. Even though my son tries to shame me for not finishing because he is so competitive. Anyway, this is Hedgehog Fibers Daydream in their 4-ply fingering. This is a single from La Bien-Aimée in the colorway Blue Royale, I believe. And then this lime green is the colorway Cocoa, also by the genius La Bien-Aimée. I just wanted to throw that out there. I have told you that a trillion times before. I have a thought, and I wonder what y'all think, and I wonder what Linda thinks, being the MCAL superstar that she is. I was about to say manager, but that doesn't sound like a very fun title. MCAL manager. Anyway, what if the MCAL were 6 weeks instead of 4? I'm sure there's a reason that it's 4 weeks, because I think he does the hibernating stuff right after and blah, blah, blah. But I personally feel like I would have a better chance of finishing in the 6 weeks, because the 4 weeks, it's like by the middle of week 2, I'm totally disheartened by my progress, and I just have abandoned all hope that I'll be able to keep up, despite the fact that every year I'm like, no, this is the year I'm going to do it in 4 weeks. It just doesn't happen. This giant fingering weight shawl for me is just, it's an impossibility. I just wonder, because that Anna Johanna sweater mystery knit along that she's doing, the bugs one, I've talked about it before. It's called It's a Bug, Not a Feature, which is so punny and cute. J'adore that name. And I bought that pattern and I've watched it unfold, and it is so freaking cool. I think I will knit it someday. I did not do it on her timeline, but hers is like 6 or 7 weeks, or maybe even more. And I just wonder if that would be something people would enjoy, like having a little more time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares what I think about that. We proceed at our own pace, and we can make it a year knit along, as I have made mine. Okay, say goodbye. I don't know when we will see you again, my dear MCAL, but I have to say the tip from one of you to keep the part you're not working on in the knitting bag while you're working on, so to keep the part you're working on isolated was a lifesaver. Oh my gosh, it was such a lifesaver. It's still a lot of management because you're constantly flipping back and forth, but it's about 80% easier to keep it isolated. It reminds me of like if you're having surgery and they just like isolate the thing they're operating on. that is how I feel. It's much nicer to just keep the rest of the body of the shawl isolated. Anyway, okay, that is all of that. Now, we are getting to the point where I have my own permission to cast on something new. It's so exciting. I think there's no greater excitement than like the anticipation of choosing a new project. Last week I talked about this guy my ears want to pop it out. Last week I talked about the Rain or Shine shawl and Wishbone yarns and all the inspo I was feeling from that. What I feel right now after having finished this and winding down the big rib is a deep desire to learn something new, to venture into more challenging territory. And for me, that is undoubtedly color work. I have never done proper stranded color work. I've done mosaic knitting. I work with color a lot, but I have always been very intimidated by having to manage 2 strands of yarn in the same row or round. I tried, in the beginning of my knitting journey, I tried to knit the proper way, or what was presented to me as the right way of knitting, which was to hold the yarn English style. And I found that extremely disheartening and did not attempt to knit again for 2 years until I discovered that Stephen West knits with his left hand and I crochet with my left hand. So if he can do it and be the genius that he is, then surely I have the permission to do that. Anyway, I am intimidated by having to hold the yarn in my right hand and my left hand. But I've been knitting long enough now to realize that what seems impossible at the beginning is very much possible through just practice and repetition, and the willingness to be uncomfortable and realize learning is an uncomfortable journey. For instance, I long ago, remember my bubble cardigan? When I got to the sleeves of that, I told you I made it short because I was so intimidated by magic loop, because my only attempts at magic loop had resulted in a lot of laddering, and it was so frustrating that I was like, okay, I can't do magic loop. Where I realized if I kept trying and trying to learn the right things that might work, improve my magic loop, I figured it out, and now I'm completely consistent and have 0 laddering issues with magic loop because I figured out what I needed to do. And side note, that the solution to that for me was, there's a lot of advice out there on magic loop to pull the yarn tight when you are switching needles. That is incorrect for me. The right advice that I encountered somewhere, and I don't even know where, was not to pull the yarn any different, to try to keep that tension exactly the same. If you pull the second or first stitch tight, ironically, it's counterintuitive, but that pulling is actually what creates laddering because the tension gets all wonky. You want to keep even tension across those changes. That changed my life, and now I have no laddering problems. But if I hadn't kept trying and searching, I wouldn't have found what works for me. And so I know if I can just keep going on color work, I will figure out how to hold my yarn English style, and in the process, probably open myself up to lots of other options just with that, you know? Anyway. So the long story short is I'm really drawn right now to color work, and I'm ready. I'm ready, y'all. I'm ready to try something new, to get uncomfortable and to feel like a beginner again. What is it? I know the smart thing to do would be to pick like a hat, but hats don't inspire me. First of all, it's almost May, and I'm not gonna be wearing a wool hat. And I know myself, like my first knitting project was Stephen West's Bubble Cowl, which no sane person would be like, yes, you should do that as your first project. But I need to feel just completely unadulterated joy and excitement about a project to have the motivation to push through the discomfort. So the first project I really was drawn to recently, I have tons of Colorwork projects in my Ravelry favorites because it's stunning. When you love color like I do, you're endlessly inspired. But what I was recently thinking I was going to do was the Hello, I believe it's called Hello from My Colors crop by Jessie Maed. I'm in a Jessie Maed phase, y'all, apparently, because this would be project 3. But what specifically drew me to that was that it doesn't have sleeves. It is a short sleeve crop like t-shirt, which of course you can make it not crop, but it doesn't have sleeves or has the option to not have sleeves. And I am feeling sleeve fatigue. I am super tired of making sleeves right now. I do not want to make anything with sleeves. I want to make the body and be done. But then I realized I have in my library, I already bought like last year, Caitlin Hunter's Soldotna crop. I think that's how you pronounce it. I will put pictures up of both. Since I already purchased the Soldotna, I decided I'm going to do that. And also the bonus points for that is that it is in DK, whereas the Hello from My Colors is fingering weight. And I am not, I think when you're doing something new, DK is just like that sweet spot yarn. It's not too thick. It's not too thin. It's not going to take you forever. It's just a really nice weight to work with. That's like just the Goldilocks zone of yarn. So I decided to knit that. Now I'm in a very, very difficult spot because I think it's very hard to choose colors for Colorwork. When you're choosing colors, for instance, we're talking about the bubble cardigan. It's very easy to visualize what it's going to look like because you're going to repeat colors, right? Even if you have 15 colors, all you have to do is line up your skeins and you can get an idea of what those colors are going to look like. With Colorwork, the colors don't just go in order. They interplay in a very different way. So I cannot just line up my skeins and see what it's going to look like. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean. So I'm having a lot of trouble figuring out what colors to use for this top. I have a lot of stash DK and worsted weight yarn, but not nearly as much as I do in fingering weight. I don't have the same color range in my stash, and I really want to use stash yarn because this is my first foray into Colorwork. I want to use what I have. I don't want to spend more money. I want to, not be worried about it being imperfect. I want to just use what I have. I need a sip of water. There is no, you don't need justification for why you want to use your stash. It's not just because I don't want to spend money. It's just I have the yarn. I want to use the yarn I have. But it is so difficult to figure out the color palette. So you're going to help me do that right now. Okay. So I would love to make the body, like the main color, what is called color 1. There's no main color in this project. It's just color 1 through 4, colors 1 through 4. But there is one that is the main color of the body. So there's the color work in the yoke, and then the body is solid with like little blips that makes it look so interesting. And I want that solid background to be this. This is the Spin Cycle Dream State in Love Spell. This is the contrast color I used. If you watched, if you saw past episodes, I made the, what's it called? Trinigan. This is the little blips in the Trinigan. And as I've said before, Andrea Mowry always gives you a major overestimation, I think, which is great. I think it's better to have more yarn than less yarn, but look how much of this I have left from that. That's a lot of yarn. And we've talked about this. I don't love the feel of the spin cycle, so I'm not gonna buy more. And so this is a lot of yarn that I could use, and literally this is exactly the amount of yarn I would need for that color 1 of the Caitlin Hunter yarn. So, I mean pattern. However, I am on the struggle bus trying to fill out the other 3 colors for this. It's just, I don't have, sorry, there's like a hair or a fiber in on my lip. It's just so hard. This is such a strange, it's not solid. It's variated, what's the word? Not variegated. Anyway. It's Friday, y'all. My brain's not working. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. My son has these late games, and like, I didn't eat dinner till 9:45 last night. And so I have sleepy brain. Apologies. I'll try to take a deep breath and streamline what I am saying. I am having trouble coordinating colors. So I'm thinking for the border to do this because I want it to be high contrast. And then I am going to have a lot of this left over, which is what I'm using for the big rib. And I think this would be kind of funky and cool with this as the, ribbing and the sleeve ribbing and the collar ribbing. But the second color, I'm having so much trouble. Could it be this? Like, that just looks so strange to me, but I know it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy. Like, I've seen this is a very heavily knit pattern. So there's a lot on Instagram and Ravelry that you can be inspired by. I think I need to I know what you're gonna say, I need to make a swatch, and that is my next step. I'm gonna work on that when I get done with what I'm doing. But like, will that look cool? If it's too matchy-matchy, it's gonna blend too much. I think it needs contrast in order for the color work to pop. If you have any advice as more experienced knitters on how you pick colors, I usually find inspiration for colors from other people and then kind of build upon that and then go if I need to buy what I need. I think what I'm having trouble with is that my favorite version of this crop is the Woolen Vines. Kristen's, she's a dyer, hand dyer, and she did one of these in her own hand-dyed yarn, and it is so gorgeous and cool looking. But I literally have no deep oxblood maroon like she has, and I don't have the peachy color she uses. I'll put a picture so you can see what I'm talking about. I just don't have the colors. I mean, I think this could work, but I would have to buy a lot of yarn to recreate my version of that. And so given that that's the most inspiring version I've found, but I don't have the colors to recreate that or use it as a jumping off point, I think that's why I'm struggling. Another version that I was thinking was this. This is Ching Fiber. It's the colorway Balloon in their DK way. It's merino nylon blend. I got this as in a surprise package I had ordered from them at Christmas, where it was like she just gave you some random skeins. This was in it, and I like it because it has these flecks of color, which I think would be really interesting in the body. And this again is the border color. And then I was thinking of doing the color work in this and possibly this, but it seems sort of uninteresting. What about this? I kind of like that. I'm actually thinking that looks cool and more cohesive than what I was showing you. I think the problem is that I'm trying to force myself to use this, and I really like this colorway. It's really difficult to plan projects with this kind of color shifting. Color shifting. That is the word I was trying to think of earlier. Not variegated, color shifting yarn. I find it very difficult to plan projects with this. I think I need to just stop trying to force myself to use this and let this be for something else down the road, and then maybe go with this. Because looking at this right now, or not, maybe drop out that peacock, I think this is pretty cool. Let me know what you think. I'm finding this process very difficult. I've been leaving out these color combinations on my counter and just letting my mind kind of process them and be, you know, inspired. I love this color. It's just not stunning. It's Malabrigo Rios. As usual, their colors are just so saturated and bright and vibrant. I don't even know if this is reading on screen as vibrant as it is in person, but it is really pretty. All of these are actually, this is all Malabrigo Rios. This is Ching Fiber, and this is Ching Fiber. So, anywhoozleby, that is where I am right now. I'm sorry if that was annoying. It felt a little like I was being annoying. Okay, that's all the fiber content I have for you today. I'm pretty happy with where I am knitting-wise right now. You know I don't like having 10 things on my needles. I just find that more stressful than enjoyable. So it's kind of exciting to get to a new round of cast-ons, if that makes any sense. All right, what else? I did want to give a quick shout out to one of you. Again, I've said this in probably every episode, but I love interacting with you guys in the comments. It's like the happiest thing for me is to get to kind of chit chat. That's like where I feel like we get to have a relationship, that it's not just this one-sided me blathering on. And one of you just brought so much joy to me, Lisa Marie. I don't know what, oh, we were chatting about, it was a couple episodes ago, we were talking about how I am mourning the fact that I don't have a small dog to knit for, because Stephen West released all these pup knits, all these dog sweaters, and I know I could knit my Labrador a sweater, but why don't I just knit myself a sweater? Because first of all, she's huge, and second of all, she has zero interest in wearing a sweater. She's like a seal pup. She is covered in blubber, and she is plenty warm, I'm sure. But I was just bemoaning that I don't have a small dog, and my husband won't let me get a small dog. But anyway, and she was telling me that her dog doesn't like sweaters, but her dog loves cowls. And this just brought me so much joy to think of Lisa Marie discovering that her dog, whose name is Monkey, which is the best name ever. Monkey does not like sweaters, but she loves to wear cowls. And so I told her, I have to see Monkey wearing her cowl. And so she sent me to her Ravelry page, and she has knit her a few cowls. But she also warned me that Monkey is not super fond of being photographed. I feel you, Monkey. I too hate being photographed. So don't mind her, you know, unhappy face in these pictures. I'm going to put a picture of Monkey in her cowl because I still have not closed the window on my computer of Monkey in her cowl, because I love dogs so much. I mean, my parents can attest to this. Like, ever since I came out of the womb, I think I was begging for a dog. And they finally caved and got me a dog. And I love dogs. If it were up to me, I would have, like, I would turn my basement into just a dog rescue sanctuary and just have my house overrun by dogs. Anyway, so Monkey and her cowl, you got to look at this picture and just, I hope it brings you as much joy as it brings me. Thank you, Lisa Marie, for sharing Monkey with us, because it's just everything that is right in the world is loving your dog enough to find out that she loves cowls and to knit her cowls, because she deserves all the cowls. We love you, Monkey. Okay, what else? Last week's chat about body image and our, choice as women to change the way we feel about ourselves. It would be an incomplete story if I didn't follow up with you guys and tell you that I woke up, I posted that video on Friday, and I woke up Saturday morning, like literally in a tizzy, feeling utterly panicked at the prospect of having shared via YouTube, like my deepest struggles in this lifetime. I was definitely like, what are you doing with your life, Lena Kirkendall? I generally have that feeling after every video I post that my husband jokes. He says, every time I post a video that I spend the next 3 days checking my email for an email from Mr. YouTube saying, "Dear Lena, nobody likes you. Please stop uploading content onto YouTube." Love Mr. YouTube. And it makes me laugh when he says that, so it brings lightness and humor to deep-seated insecurities and fears. But it's a vulnerable thing to share yourself, even with the people in your direct life, let alone to a broader community. But because you know what? I think my fear was it being like, why are you trying to ruin our fun, like happy space of knitting and light chit chat with like deep, heavy, awful stuff? Because I get that. I totally get that, how one would feel that, because I am one of those people that is, I feel deeply, and there's just times where I can't take it and I just do not want to feel deeply and I need an escape. And I turn to, various lighthearted shows and podcasts or books to give me that respite from the heaviness. So I think I felt very anxious that I would all my subscribers would unsubscribe except my kids' husband and parents, because they were like, you're just too much. We don't need your heavy life story as a side with our knitting. However, as usual, y'all are so wonderful and kind, and the honesty was met with so much honesty in return. And that was my intention. My intention was, if we don't keep our difficult things to ourselves, they won't feel so difficult anymore. If we realize we're all struggling with the exact same things, no matter what our age, our, ethnicity, or the place we live, what we look like, it doesn't matter. There is nobody that is immune from these issues. I felt like that would go a long way towards making all of our lives a little easier. I know that, I love Dr. Becky Kennedy. I've talked about her before. She's a child psychologist or psychiatrist. I don't know which one. She has a podcast that I think, even if you don't have kids, it's like being reparented. Every time I listen to one of her podcasts, it's just like, it gives you the tools to fix the things in you that aren't working. And I feel like she always says, you can't change the difficult, but you can change the alone. And it's just so true. Everything that is difficult becomes a little easier to handle when you realize that you're not alone. So you have done that for me. So many of your stories mirrored my stories, even if you were not of the same generation as me. And some of you are of the same generation and totally mirrored those exact same experiences I had, which was so amazing. And I loved hearing your stories of resilience. And, even if you're still struggling, just know that it's never too late to reprogram and what's the word? well, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. Just develop a new self-concept. On her podcast this week, which was so ironic because it was just a few days after I talked about this with y'all, she released a podcast talking to an author of a book called Fat Talk. The podcast title was I believe it is, Your Body is Not a Problem to Fix. And I was like, bingo. And I was listening to it in the car, and it was a podcast where the whole car ride alone, I was like just screaming, yes, 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 into my car to myself, because it was just like, yes, this is what, I mean, I feel so deeply. And they were talking about it in terms of raising children, to not have these same issues in a very, stringent society that is very fat phobic, reclaiming those words and having these conversations with our kids in order to make them more resilient. I was just like, it's so important. And one thing she said that I wanted to share with you, because I think it's so valuable if you are still struggling. And I think we are all still on the path to having healthier self-images. They just brought to attention what constitutes your self-worth. And one of them was saying, either they themselves or a mentor of theirs was saying, maybe if she's honest, about 5% of her self-worth comes from what she looks like. It would be disingenuous to say 0%, right? So maybe you're at 50% if you're honest. Maybe you're at 90%. Maybe you're at 20%. But just take account of that. Like, where am I? How much of my self-worth comes from what I look like? And then just that knowledge from there, it's just that awareness, like, what is it for me? I actually don't know, maybe 20%. And what is the rest of my self-worth from? Being a good parent, being a good companion, being funny, being strong. Like, I can list a lot of things that give me self-worth, and just the consciousness of that. Now I am going to lean into those things. I love being strong and strong physically and emotionally and mentally. I'm going to lean into that. Every time I have the opportunity to show myself my own strength, I'm going to stop and pause and put that in my pocket. I'm going to use those moments to define myself. And when I find myself beating myself up for what I'm looking like, I'm going to think to myself, no, we're putting that in the 15 to 20% category. We're going to refocus on the other 80%, right? Like, knitting has given me a self-identity that is so separate from what I look like. And that's why it's such a thing I love, right? Like, what are you paying attention to? It matters so much. If you are paying attention to toxic advertisements and media stuff on Instagram, if you're following influencers that are disguised as wellness but are really just disordered eating or disordered exercise, that seeps in, okay? So pay attention to what you pay attention to. I did not come up with that. That is, something that a lot of people will say because it's really important. I think that it's important for our kids, but it's equally important for us. That's why when I started paying attention to the knitting community rather than the fitness community, my body image skyrocketed, because one is really messed up and the other is really healthy and vibrant and well-rounded. I will let you guess which is which. Anyway, I wanted to just follow up and bring that conversation full circle, because I would be lying if I said it was easy to be that vulnerable to you all, or if there wasn't a lot of doubt. I had lunch with one of my dearest friends that day after I uploaded it, and somehow we ended up on a similar topic completely randomly, and I just verbal vomited on her about how much anxiety I was having about being that honest. And she was so sweet and reassuring. And then she watched my pod the next day and was like, you did great. I'm so proud of you. And just having that reassurance got me through this week. I did not wake up with anxiety that, I was going to get that email from Mr. YouTube. So enough of that. What else? I wanted to recommend one thing to you that is just giving me life and joy times a trillion. And that is a new podcast called Wiser Than Me by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who, if you are a consumer of any type of TV in the last 30 years, you should know who Julia Louis-Dreyfus is. She was on Saturday Night Live. She was Elaine on Seinfeld. She was on Veep. She's Selena Meyer on Veep. She is just one of my absolute favorite actresses of all time. But I had not been, I don't know if y'all are like this, but you can love an actor or an actress, but there's always, or even a musician or something, there's always this fear that they're not at all like that in real life. So for instance, Seinfeld is one of my favorite shows of all time. Like, I watch Seinfeld a lot. I'm one of those people that, like I was telling you earlier, the world is very stressful. Life is very busy and stressful. And at night, I want to knit and just have like Seinfeld or Frasier on in the background. Those are my two favorite shows of all time. Like, I don't care if all other TV disappeared. If I had Seinfeld and Frasier, I would be the happiest person in the world. I've seen every episode of both of those shows innumerable times. So, needless to say, I adore Elaine from Seinfeld. She is irreverent. She is hysterical. She is a fist of fury. She's this tiny little package of energy, and I just love her. And this podcast, Julia Louis is herself. She is not playing a character, and she is so fully everything I hoped and dreamed she would be. She is intelligent. She's irreverent. She's interviewing all these women that are older than her, because she rightly points out that, society just deems women's shelf life, even the term shelf life objectifies women, as ending when they are deemed no longer sufficiently attractive. And she is pushing back against that notion and interviewing women in their 70s and 80s who have life experience and wisdom to share. And it is just magic. I mean, you would be doing yourself a vast disservice if you did not go binge this podcast right now. Like, turn this off and go listen to Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Her first interview was Jane Fonda. I could talk for another hour about how much I love Jane Fonda. I bemoan the fact that I did not grow up with Jane Fonda being like, I did not grow up with her being just in the, in the entertainment industry when I was growing up. She was older. I am so obsessed with her. Because of that interview, I started watching her documentary on, I think it's HBO, called The Five Acts of Jane Fonda or something like that. Couldn't recommend it enough. It's just so human and real. And she is just a hero. I mean, Jane Fonda is just, she broke the mold. You have to go listen and watch that. Listen to the interview with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. It was so good. She talks about some of the things we've been talking about body image. And this is when I realized, I think that we all think that, and I think men are like this too, and maybe they're more like this with money than they are with looks. But I think women think there is some imaginary body or face or level of beauty that you can get to where you will no longer feel not good enough. You will no longer feel like you're not pretty enough, not thin enough, that if you can just work hard enough and get there, then suddenly you will feel good in your skin and you will never feel unattractive or less than again. And that interview with Jane Fonda proved that that is 100% true. And that's why you just have to stop playing the game, because it is a mirage. There is no place where you will feel good enough. There is no level of beauty, fame, recognition, because Jane Fonda had it all. She was recognized as the most beautiful woman, sought after in movies across the world, been, told over and over that she is beautiful. And she always felt less than and ugly and struggled with eating disorders. And there is no place you can get unless you give that to yourself. And that's what I loved about the Jane Fonda interview, is that she at 80 or whatever age she is still struggling. So unless we do it for ourselves, there's no finish line. There is no place you're going to get that you feel good. So go listen to Julie Louise's new podcast. It is spectacular. I think there's only 4 episodes out. I cannot wait till the next ones. Ruth Reichel, the gourmet editor, she interviewed her. She interviewed Fran Lebowitz, which is hysterical because just go listen. And then she always talks to her mom at the end, which is so great because her mom is absolutely adorable. I couldn't rave enough. You got to go watch it. Listen to it. So listen to it and let me know what you think. It's been an hour. I was determined not to go long this time. So I feel like this is a great place to end. Thank you again for watching. If you're still here, you're amazing. You guys are just the best friends a knitting gal could ever ask for. Always leave me a comment on YouTube or Instagram. I'm still struggling on Instagram. It's just not my favorite place to post, but I'll keep trying, and you can always leave me a direct message there if you want to. Okay? Have a great weekend. Let me know what you're knitting and if you're gonna squeeze in some knitting and enjoy some spring weather, I hope, and I will see you next time. Bye.